Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dino Puen, and I'll be talking about empiricism. Welcome to Psych 201 radio station. To be honest, nung kinuha ko ang topic na ito, akala ko madali lang kasi empiricism about experiences and sensation perception and such. Pero hindi. Actually, it's quite difficult kasi marami pala. Right, we'll be talking about the British empiricists. So let's take a look at it. All right. So who are these people? Let's start off, of course, with Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, nakilala ng lahat, George Berkeley, David Hume, nakilala din. So David Hartley, James Mill and his son John Stuart Mill, and lastly, it would be Alexander Bain. So simulan na natin. Let's start off with Thomas Hobbes. So who is this individual? He is known to be the first British empiricist, or he is actually the founder of British empiricism. Okay, so in his views, okay, he views humans as mechanical models. Why? In his book entitled Leviathan, okay, in the introduction of his work, Hobbes tells us that man is like a machine and the government is like an artificial human being. So everything that happens in a man, all right, his bodily functions, emotions, and psychological processes is a product of mechanical interactions. Okay, of course, the sender would be the head. Okay, so like a human being, the government should have a head that guides the functions of the body, okay, or that would be the society. Inasmuch as he is just an aggregate of matter, a man reacts to his environment according to how his body reacts to external stimuli. So his material body pursues pleasure but disdains pain. All right, so he acts only according to the demands of his body. That's according to Tamayo. So we as people, okay, loves to have pleasure, and of course we don't want to have painful experiences. Okay, so he proposed that all knowledge comes from sensation as opposed to innate knowledge. Of course, that's the basic assumption of empiricism, that we don't get knowledge from innate ideas or inborn ideas, but we gain knowledge through experiences. So he opposed, like Plato, he said that we have an innate knowledge, or René Descartes, but for Thomas Hobbes, he said that our knowledge are from our sensation or experience. Okay, he is also considered as a materialist, okay, for the reason that he does not believe in the spiritual concepts. He focuses more on the things that are observable, okay, and he did not believe in the soul or in the mind as separate from the body, or in any of the other incorporeal and metaphysical entities in which other writers have believed. Okay, so not going beyond the material things that we see, okay, but looking at the materials itself. He is also considered as a determinist. Why? He is not a believer of a free will. Everything is predetermined. We know that in psychology we have this free will and determinism, but for Hobbes, everything in this world is predetermined. He is also a reductionist, that everything that we know could be broken down and understood in terms of its simple property. Okay, reduction of things. So that's it for Thomas Hobbes, the founder of British empiricism. Now let's proceed with John Locke. Right. So John Locke was considered as one of the most influential during the Enlightenment period. Okay, as of now, he was a philosopher that is very well known until up this day. Okay, so he was influenced by René Descartes, but he contradicted his idea of innate knowledge or idea, because for him, okay, ideas come from experiences or senses. Okay, so Locke believes that all contents of consciousness comes into our mind from one source, and that is experience. All right. He also proposed or gave us two fountains of knowledge or source of ideas, and these are sensation and reflection. Sensation, basically, this involves our five senses, and it's also defined as our experiences from the outer world. Okay, so from which we derive such notions as blue, round, solid, smooth, or heavy, or large, or something, etc. But then these are things that we perceive from our environment. Reflection, on the other hand, are considered as experiences from our inner world, okay, from which we get the notions of fear, love, willingness or doubting, affirming, and so on. Now, he also gave us the concept of simple and complex ideas. Simple ideas are basically the basic qualities of something, or a basic quality of experience. And complex ideas are, oh, sorry, that's not it. Complex ideas are the collection of simple ideas, or complexes of simple ideas. Next is the concept of primary and secondary qualities. So what are these? Primary qualities are considered as the inherent or characteristics of objects. So these are like the solidity of an object, the extension, the motion or rest, number and figure. So these are inherent characteristics of a thing. Secondary qualities, on the other hand, are more or less termed as subjective, okay? Because these are the things we perceive but not part of the object. So they are only ideas in our minds, but not qualities of the object, and it's caused by the perception of certain qualities of objects. So everything we perceive besides the primary qualities are all secondary, like sound, color, temperature, taste, texture, smell. These are subjective, or it's dependent from individual to individual. So I may have different taste of an eggplant, okay? I would consider it as yummy, while you consider it as not good, okay? So these are the secondary qualities. These are considered subjective. Now let's discuss his famous work, which is Tabula Rasa. We all know this ever since we started learning psychology. Tabula rasa, a Latin word that pertains to a blank slate, and John Locke said that our mind is like a blank sheet of paper. So as we grow older, okay, we have we develop knowledge or an idea of something as we experience them. Okay, and in my readings, one of the importance of tabula rasa is child rearing. Okay, so since we believe that we learn from experience, so as parents especially, we train children to experience something, we teach them, okay, because we believe in an empiricism view, or empiricist view, we believe that a child will learn through teaching them properly. Okay, so that's it for John Locke. No. All right, let's proceed to the next one, and that is George Berkeley. And he was considered, or he was an Irish philosopher and an Anglican bishop. And he was, or he rejected, okay, the idea of materialism because he was considered as an idealist. So he is classified as an empiricist philosopher along with Locke. Okay? Pero papaano? Hindi naman siya naniniwala sa material objects. Ang sagot dyan is because the central point of empiricism involves gaining knowledge through the senses rather than from the innate ideas. So, Berkeley wholeheartedly believes that we do acquire all of our knowledge through sense perception. Okay? So, Berkeley denied materialism because for him, reality exists because God is the one perceiving it. Okay? Now, he also said that all qualities are secondary as opposed to the primary qualities. If you recall, I mentioned earlier that Locke distinguished the difference between primary and secondary qualities, but here comes Berkeley contradicting that idea. Because for him, he believes that things that we can experience directly is our own perceptions or the secondary qualities. He then argued that primary qualities are just as spectator dependent as secondary ones. So in other words, all qualities of objects are really secondary and thus spectator dependent, or it depends on an individual. All right, so it's very dependent from an individual. And this he formed his famous idea, the esse est percipi, or that means to be is to be perceived, or if something cannot be perceived, it does not exist. Now, let's proceed to the next one, and that is David Hume. Okay, kilala natin itong si David Hume, no? A Scottish philosopher, and he was considered as a strict empiricist. And perceptions, impressions, and ideas are one of his core concepts in empiricism. So, perceptions, ano po ito? Okay. So, these are considered as any sensory experiences that a person have, okay, or using our five senses. So, using perceptions, okay, or yes, perceptions, okay, or by using our senses or sensations, it will lead then to our impressions. Okay, so what is impressions? Okay, so these are considered as vivid or strong perceptions that are being actively experienced. And according to him, it is a perception that involves actual sensations such as seeing, feeling, tasting, or hearing. So basically, it says here that these impressions are being actively experienced, as opposed to ideas, okay, that are considered just copies of impressions that can be recalled later on. So an idea is a mental perception which arises by thinking of something rather than by experiencing it. So medyo shallow ito, no? Compared to impressions. So for Hume, he said that it is impossible to recall something that a person has never experienced, okay, or has never had in his impressions. So in other words, an individual can have or form an idea of something even without its presence, but you cannot have an impression of something that is not present. Okay, medyo malabo, no? Pero let's take a look at an example. It says here that if I have an idea of a snow, okay, but I never had any impression of a snow, meaning to say, I never had a direct experience of a snow kasi I never went to like Japan to experience it or somewhere else in the North Pole, no? So for him, my idea then is meaningless. Okay? So, dahil hindi ko siya naranasan mismo. So, it's just an idea of something, or maybe baka sinabi lang ng kaibigan na snow is something like this, but then you cannot really give, okay, a full definition of a snow if you never experience such. Okay? So now let's go to the three laws or principles of association. And these are law of resemblance, contiguity, and causality. So in the law of resemblance, okay, this is an idea or a thought that leads to another, okay, because of resembling features that they have. Okay? So an example for this, if I look at, okay, nasa notes nito, if I look at our family picture, then I'll probably thinking of the qualities that my family resembles. Okay? So in other words, it also says here that similar things tend to revive one another. So the photograph of a person reminds us of the person. Okay? So that's the law of resemblance. What about the law of contiguity? Okay? Or nearness. It says that contiguous things tend to revive one another, or one thing that is being in close proximity to another. So, ang example ko dyan na nasa notes niyo ay pag meron akong kaibigan na nagngangalang Realizan or person, a friend of mine named Realizan tells me about a school named UC or University of the Cordilleras, I would think of its neighbor, and that is SM, no? And that is the contiguity of space, nearness. Because yan yung katabi ng UC eh. Alright? So that is the law of contiguity. Things tend to revive one another, or one thing that is being in close proximity to another. And what about the law of causality, or the cause and effect? So it claims that if two events are connected as cause and effect, then one revives the image of the other. So ang example ko dyan, okay, ay if a friend asks me, okay, about the scar in my hand, okay, I will immediately start thinking about the bike accident that I've had when I was a child, no? So what's the cause, or the effect would be the scar, no? And because of that scar, I can definitely recall the cause why I do have a scar in my hand. Okay, so that's for the law of the laws or principles of association. So something, okay, the resemblance, contiguity, causality, these are used, okay, as something for us to associate things. Okay, so these three principles alone, okay, according to Hume, are responsible for all mental association that our minds make in the normal flow of ideas. Okay, so that's it for Hume. Now let's proceed to David Hartley. Okay, so David Hartley, he was an English philosopher and the founder of associationism na napahapyawan natin kanina, no? Na sinabi ni David Hume na nagbigay ng principles of association. Now, association by contiguity and repetition. Ito yung parang core concept ni David Hartley. So, Hartley's fundamental law of association is contiguity, by which he attempted to explain the processes of memory, okay, reasoning, emotion, and voluntary and involuntary action. So ideas or sensations that occur together or simultaneously or successively becomes associated so that the occurrence of one is connected with the occurrence of the other. So Hartley proposed that repetition of sensations and ideas is necessary for associations to be formed. Okay? Repetition. Parang contiguity and repetition. If something happens or is repetitively happens, okay, and more or less or definitely these things will be associated with each other, or an association will be formed. Okay, now let's proceed to his uh, influence, or the influence of mechanism. So, like other philosophers before him, Hartley viewed the mental world in mechanistic terms, like Thomas Hobbes. Okay, Hartley attempted to explain psychological processes in light of mechanical principles, and he also tried to explain their underlying physiological processes. So, Isaac Newton, on the other hand, had asserted that one characteristic of impulses in the physical world is they vibrate. So now, Hartley, okay, applied this idea to the functioning of the human brain and nervous system. So he then suggested that the nerves were solid structures, okay, and that vibrations of the nerves transmitted impulses from one part of the body to another. So these vibrations are initiated smaller vibrations in the brain, okay, which were the physiological counterparts of ideas, okay. So the importance of Hartley's doctrine for psychology is that it is yet another attempt to use scientific ideas about the mechanical universe as model for understanding human nature. Okay, so, and that is his idea of vibrationcles. I'm not really sure how to pronounce that, but on this, he said, okay, that our ideas are from the sensory vibrations of the nerves, okay, and he proposed that sensations enter into the nervous system as vibrations. So everything, something, okay, that vibrates becomes our ideas, okay, passes through from our nervous systems. And basically, yan yung pinag-aaralan natin sa physiological things. No? So that's it for David Hartley. Now, let's proceed to another associationist, and that is James Mill, a Scottish historian, economist, political theorist, and a philosopher, and a follower of utilitarianism, wherein utilitarianism is defined as, its goals and principles are to advocate the greatest happiness of the greatest number. So pagbibigay, so parang giving happiness to everyone or to the greater one. Now, he defined then, or he has his definition of simple and complex idea, right? So, complex ideas can be reduced to simple ideas, okay? And simple ideas can be added to create complex idea, right? So, nakita na yun. Simple ideas, okay, can be added or together to create a complex idea. And his idea for complex idea, okay, is that it can be reduced to simple ideas. On the other hand, complex ideas can be also added to complex ideas, making it more complex and so on. So, nagpapatong-patong yan. Our complex ideas ay naiipon, okay? Having more complex ideas and so on. Okay? And for him, the continuous experience of ideas is more linked to a stronger association. So, as we experience things more, okay, we tend to associate those ideas, okay, o nakakaroon tayo ng mas matibay na idea. So, for him, the strength of association is determined by vividness and frequency. Or if the association is strong, okay, and if it's a frequent, okay, then we're probably having more a better idea or a better idea of something. Okay, and that's it for James Mill. Now let's proceed to John Stuart Mill, his son, the son of James Mill. No? And his upbringing was considered as extreme nurture. Bakit? Okay, kasi in his autobiography or from my readings, okay, John began learning, he began learning Greek at the age of 3, okay, learning Latin at the age of 8. So he then, as he grew older, okay, he studied French, mathematics, chemistry in France at the age, at just the age of 14, no? And at the age of 16, he began working as a clerk for his father at India House, okay, is a corporation, okay. So by 18, John was publishing articles on utilitarian philosophy already, okay. But at the age of 20, or yeah, 20, he had a nervous breakdown, which he described in his autobiography in 1873. So he then attributed this, okay, to his rigid education, okay. Kasi bata pa lang siya, tinuturuan na ni James Mill, okay, ng Greek, Latin, mathematics, chemistry, and kaya hindi masyadong na-enjoy ni James Mill ang kanyang pagkabata or his childhood. Parang ganon, no? Kasi nga, he was educated at an early age. Okay? But then, let's not look into that. Okay? His theory is more of a mental chemistry rather than mental addition. Kasi, nung pinag-uusapan pa natin kanina, mga simple ideas, complex ideas, okay? It's more of like mental addition. Pinag-add mo lang yung mga simple ideas and we're forming it to a complex idea. But for him, it's more of a mental chemistry. So, anong ibig sabihin niya? So, he disagreed on the notion wherein complex ideas are aggregates of simple ideas. So, he then proposed the term mental chemistry. So he was impressed by the fact that chemicals combine and produce something entirely different from the elements that made them up, like water. All right. So it's a combination of two hydrogen atoms and one oxygen atom. But if we add up one more atom to the oxygen, and that would be peroxide. So he believes that the same thing can happen in the mind. So it is possible for simple ideas to fuse and produce an idea that is different from the elements that made it up. And because of that, he coined the term creative synthesis. So creative synthesis means that it is the notion that complex ideas formed from simple ideas take on new qualities. So the combination of the mental elements create something greater than or different from the sum of the original elements. Right, so now let's proceed to the last one. Sa wakas, malapit na. So Alexander Bain. So he was often regarded as the first psychologist because of his article, The Mind, or Mind, no? Na na-publish niya noon. And one of his famous writings or work ay yung mind-body parallelism or psychophysical parallelism. So, psychophysical parallelism or the mind-body problem solution that allows for two separate systems. One for physical events and the other for mental events. Okay, but it prohibits them from affecting each other. Thus, his psychology sprung from that philosophical background with its deep roots going back to Locke, of course, Berkeley and Hume, no? So he adopted their philosophically derived principles like contiguity, similarity, repetition, or frequency. So to this, he added something new, and that is compound association. So he used the concept because it helped explain the complexity behind association. So most ideas were not linked one-to-one with a specific stimulus. So instead, they were linked to many stimuli, okay, some of which could be quite weak, all right. Consequently, those would have had a little chance to elicit ideas by themselves. So he also added a concept he called constructive association that explained how new ideas arose in the mind. So what is his law of compound association? So this states that associations are seldom links between idea and another. Rather, an idea is usually associated with several other ideas, either through contiguity or similarity. A law of constructive association, on the other hand, okay, he said that by means of association, our mind, okay, has the power to form new combinations or aggregates different from any that have been presented to it in the course of experience. Meaning, the mind has the ability to rearrange memories of various experiences into an infinite number of combinations. So this is very evident, okay, to some people like the poets, artists, inventors, and others who are showing their creativity. Okay, that's the law of constructive association. On the next one are the parts of the mind. He gave us a three, and that is feeling, volition, and intellect. Basically, feeling that deals with our emotion, our passion, okay, affection and sentiment, while in volition is our will and action. And of course, intellect would include our thought and cognition. Now, we have also the concept of voluntary behavior, and that is reflexive and spontaneous behavior. So reflexive behavior occurs automatically in response to same external stimulus because of the structure of an organism's system. On the other hand, or conversely, organisms sometimes simply act spontaneously. Anong sinasabi dito? So, spontaneous activity is one ingredient of voluntary behavior, sabi niya, no? And the other is hedonism, okay, about pleasure. Now, Bain used the concept of hedonism to explain how spontaneous activity is converted into voluntary behavior. So, with voluntary behavior, we still have the laws of association at work, okay? Some spontaneous actions became associated with pleasure, and therefore it is repeated. Others are associated with pain, and therefore reduced in frequency of occurrence. So also, in accordance with the law of frequency, the tendencies to repeat pleasurable responses or avoid painful ones increase with the frequency of pleasurable or painful consequences. Right, so let's summarize then what Alexander Bain is saying. No? So we have 5 items here. Sabi dito, when some needs such as hunger or the need to be released from confinement, there is a random or spontaneous activity. And some of these random movements will produce or approximate conditions necessary for satisfying the need, and others will not. So the activities that bring need satisfaction are remembered. And the next time the organism is in similar situation, it will perform the activities that previously brought about need satisfaction. So actions that are performed because of their previous effectiveness in a given situation are voluntary. So that's the end of my discussion, and I hope you learned something. And for further inquiry, you can look at my references that I posted in your notes, or ay nakalagay din sa notes nyo, no? Para mas maintindihan nyo. Alright? Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.